So welcome everybody. Appreciate everyone coming out both live and on Zoom. So those of you that chose to spend your evening with us instead of going to Fiesta are going to have a much more rewarding experience. I guarantee. So thank you very much for coming. Next slide. So a few announcements very quickly before Patsy England introduces our esteemed speaker. One is about lights out. Hold on, gotta let somebody in. I'm back. So where was I? Oh yeah, lights out. Remember that birds migrate at night. And for many, many years, birds migrated without the aid of artificial light. And they could tell by the stars and the moon versus the ground what was up and down. We've come and we have lit up the entire landscape, and now birds can't tell what's up and down. So we need to turn our lights out because it's very, very disorienting. So spring migration is March 1 to June 15. Fall migration is August 15 to November 30. And tonight, for those of you who live out in the country, is a high migration night. So at about 11:30, if you go out, you might be hearing flight calls of different birds flying over. But also just remember to turn your lights out down. There's a website called birdcast.info. If you're curious about the volume of birds, what kind of birds are flying over you at night, go to birdcast.info. It's a fabulous website. Next slide. And our Purple Martin project helped us find purple martin houses that have gone to seed. They are the homes, the ones that have gone to seed are no longer housing, or maybe they never did house purple martins. They're housing other birds that like house sparrows and starlings, which we're not interested in maintaining those habitats. So email us at pm@bearaudubon.org. You can see it at the bottom of your screen there. And let us know if you know of any purple martin houses that have gone to seed, and we can help you with those. Clean them out, take a look at what the habitat is for where that house is, let you know if it can be rehabbed. If it can't, maybe we can move it to another place. Next slide, please. Climate Watch surveys. It's that time again, folks. So we do Climate Watch. It's a Audubon sponsored program where you pick a square, kind of like a game show. You pick a square and you do surveys in that square looking for the lesser goldfinch. And this is a long-term study sponsored by Audubon to measure the impact of climate change on bird ranges and bird habitat. And so we urge you to sign up. You'll want to pick a square and do your 12 different zones within that square somewhere between May 15 and June 15. There's a Zoom training that Patsy will do, Patsy England, on Wednesday, May 10th from 6:30 to 8. It's really not that hard, and it's really just doing something that you like to do anyway, only doing it for science. Next slide, please. And oh, by the way, the hours for that, for the training, are AT hours for Texas Master Naturalists, as well as volunteer hours for your birding are also eligible for Texas Master Naturalists. Forgot to mention that. Birding with Purpose. So this is our program, Bear Audubon's program, to bird private lands for both the education of the landowner, to let them know what birds are on their property and how to maintain that property and the habitat for those birds, but also for science, because so much of Texas is in private land. There are many areas that don't get birded or birded very well. So by going out and birding on these properties, we get to help improve the science that is being done through eBird. So this is a great opportunity. Our next project is Creech. the Creech property in Wilson County coming up on May 12th, I believe, Saturday at 8 o'clock. So go to bearaudubon.org and sign up and come bird with us. Next slide, please. And in addition to that, as part of our Bird City ongoing commitment of Bird City, there are many things we have to do to maintain that certification. And one of those is the golf course survey. So we survey all the municipal golf courses in San Antonio, Texas. And here's a list of the ones coming up. The first one for the season is Mission del Lago, May 1st. It's on the south side of town. It is actually an amazing place to bird. It's one of the better golf courses to bird at. So I would highly recommend that if you want to come out and join us for that, we would appreciate it. And it's a good time to be had by all. And I believe those hours are also eligible for Texas Master Naturalist hours. Next slide, please. The City Nature Challenge is coming up April 28th through May 1st. For those of you that attended Craig Hensley's iNaturalist course last month, this is an opportunity to go out and practice how to use iNaturalist. This is a contest where we compete with other municipalities to see how many species can be identified through iNaturalist in a given weekend. And it can be any kind of thing that crawls, walks, talks, is growing in the ground, growing out of rocks. It can be anything. So it's a lot of fun, very educational, and also helps science. Next slide, please. And this is an important announcement here. HEB has always been a good partner to the nonprofit world. And what they're doing is, and they do this every year, is they partner with Earthshare Texas. And as you check out of HEB shopping, you can have $1, $3, or $5 donated to Earthshare Texas. Now, why would you want to do that? For those of you that don't know much about Earthshare Texas, it's an organization comprised of 35 different nonprofits. And one of those is Audubon Foundation of Texas. And so all the money that gets collected during this period goes to Earthshare. Earthshare then redistributes that money out to these various nonprofits. Some of those funds comes to Audubon Foundation of Texas, which then takes that and redistributes that out to the participating Audubon chapters, namely Bear Audubon. And we make some significant money off of this. And it's several $100s, which is big, significant money for our little organization. So I highly encourage you to please donate to Earthshare, because it not only helps Bear Audubon, but it helps a number of other noteworthy organizations as well. Next slide, please. And as you know, even though our name is Bear Audubon, we're actually covering a much broader territory, much larger geography than that. And we'd like to welcome all the people in Gillespie County, our latest county, to join the Bear Audubon flock. And we're happy to see them and can't wait to have a birding opportunity out in Gillespie County. And I believe that's my last slide. Next slide, please. Oh yeah, need to announce who our next speaker is. For May, Sharon Wilcox is going to be here to talk about the ocelot. And if you have seen that documentary called Deep in the Heart of Texas, done by Ben Masters, a phenomenal filmographer, and narrated by Matthew McConaughey, they do a really amazing segment on the ocelot. And I've had a chance to see Ben Masters talk about specifically the effort that they went through to try to photograph this little critter, because it's down to like populations of 20 or 30 in Texas. So it's a highly endangered animal. And so I encourage you to come hear about the ocelot, the conservation challenges on the ocelot, and what a charming animal that it really is. And with that, I'd like to have Patsy Inglet come in and introduce our speaker and our topic for the evening. Okay, did you get in? Good.
Well, thank you. Hello, everybody. God, I thought I was tall till I got behind this. Good thing Bruce is tall. I want to welcome Bruce Beehler to our midst. Bruce has been here before in San Antonio. Every time he comes to San Antonio, we say, come and speak to us because he's always got a great story to tell. And tonight he's going to tell a story of his quest from the Mexican border to the Arctic Ocean, 30,000 miles driving in his car. You have to see his car. I hope he has a picture of it in the slideshow. It is loaded to the gills with stuff, and he drives all over the place chasing godwits. And the first question you might have is, what is a godwit? Well, he's going to tell us all about that. It's a bird, a shorebird, but he doesn't just look at those. He has a blog that he posts. And he's a wonderful photographer, and he shows you pictures of everything. He makes you want to follow him. And he writes books about what he's done. He's a wonderful storyteller. He has a lot of his books over here that you're welcome to take a look at. And he started in Papua New Guinea with some of his research. And he has been back then. I think this is wonderful. In 2007, he was on 60 Minutes. Yeah. And it was an expedition he led to is it Foja or Foja?
Lots of disagreement. Those are both fine.
Whatever. The Papua New Guineans know how to say it. These mountains in the interior of New Guinea where they had to drop him in by helicopter, and they were all out there by themselves. And this team discovered creatures that had never been described by science. And he told us all about that when he was here before, but you can read his books about that. And he has done so much that I can't tell you everything he does, but right now he serves on the Scientific Advisory Board of the Rainforest Trust. He served on the boards of the American Bird Conservancy. He's an elected fellow of the American Ornithological Society. And he is an editor for the Wilson Journal of Ornithology. I don't know where he has time to drive all these 30,000 miles, but it's always a pleasure to have him. You will not believe some of his stories, but they're all true. He told me that.
Well, most of them.
Well, you're in Texas. You're allowed to expand on a bit. So Bruce, tell us the story. We can't wait to hear it.
Patsy, thank you so much. In 2015, I had just retired of a career in ornithology. So I spent 40 happy years studying something that I had fallen in love with when I was 7 years old. And that was really, to be able to do that was a wonderful thing. But also, to be able to retire can also be a wonderful thing too. And I'm going to tell you really retirement stories tonight. And 2015, I decided to keep busy in retirement rather than just watching TV. I decided to be active because I'm an active sort. And I remembered a book that was written by Edwin Waiteel named North with the Spring. Some of you may have heard of anyone heard of North with the Spring book? Anyone on Zoom heard that? It won the Pulitzer Prize in 1959, I think. And Teal, a wonderful naturalist, he and his wife did this drive where they went down into Florida and waited for spring to come, and they followed spring north slowly at the speed of spring. And they ended up on the summit of Mount Washington in New Hampshire in June. And so they basically had 3 months of spring, which was a wonderful thing. I thought, for many of us, especially working people, we love spring. Spring is coming, but we're in our office, we're at our desk, we're at our computers. And, we get out maybe a weekend, a Sunday here or there, and then spring's gone in the summer. And we miss spring. And the idea of spending a whole 3 months doing spring is just a fantastic thing. And I was able to do that in 2015. I tweaked the teal modality a little bit. he went from Florida to New Hampshire. I'm really more of a bird person. He's more of a broad brush naturalist. And I decided to meet spring migration on the coast of the Gulf Coast of Texas and follow it north up the Mississippi drainage, and then continue on into Canada as far as you could drive in central Ontario. And what I was going to focus on were the wood warblers, because they're, for birders, wood warblers, especially now where they're coming through, we fall in love with those. And that ended up, that's this book here, North on the Wing, that tells that story. And then, okay, you're done that. Now what? You have to, the book's done. I don't want to watch TV. Let's do something else. So what's another great group of birds? The shorebirds. Most birders, like when we go to High Island, or we're based down there on the Bolivar Peninsula this time of year, what do? We look at shorebirds and we look at warblers. So I decided to focus. Let's again get out, and instead of following the warblers, let's follow the shorebirds. And I decided to choose this time a flagship species, and that was the Hudsonian Godwit. And the really idea, what I found with doing the first book was that you use the love of birds and bird migration just basically to see North America. You see a lot of things that you have never seen before and don't know about. And this is just more of same, except it's a lot more. The first project I did with the warblers, I went out on one trip for 100 days. I camped out every night for 100 days following those warblers. And the goal was to see all 37 wood warblers on their breeding habitat. And that moves you to lots and lots of places in the United States and Canada. Well, with the Godwits, let's see where they breed. Move ahead on this. Where do I point this? Anywhere particularly? Well, the Godwits breed, let's see if the little pointer works. They breed up in Western Alaska and Northern Alaska. They breed on Hudson Bay here. So there's, if you're going to follow Godwits, here's their migration route in the spring. They move, remember they're coming from far southern South America, this Hudsonian Godwit. They're breeding they're wintering, They're wintering in Chile and Argentina, down to the southern cone there. And then they come up through the heartland, up the Mississippi, and they split up to their different subspecies or their different populations. And then in this fall, they do something different because of the winds, and they headed back to South America. They head east. All the populations head east. They stage here on Hudson Bay and in James Bay. Sorry, they stage mainly here in James Bay. And then they head east to the coast and then out over the Atlantic and then down to South America. So if I was going to follow them, now, one of the things I'm limiting myself, I'm not going to talk about Chile. I'm not going to talk about Argentina. That's another talk for somebody else. And there are plenty of people that are working on Godwits in South America. So I'm going to talk about Godwits and their the other shorebirds that you see when you're looking for Godwits in the United States and Canada. And that's actually plenty. That'll keep us busy for the night, I assure you. So this gives you an idea of the spots I did. This is 5 different field trips between 2018 and 2022. One trip I took, the first trip I took, I drove down to the border of Mexico and followed the Godwits as they went due north. And then I got as far as I could get here in Manitoba and Winnipeg. And then I flew up to Churchill, where Godwits breed, and I spent time with them there breeding. Not for sorry, Godwits were breeding, not me. And then that fall, I met the Godwits here in James Bay, and then followed to the east as we get to the coast, and then down to Massachusetts, where the last of the Godwits tend to take off and head to South America. Then COVID came, which threw up a bit of a monkey wrench into things. So I killed time by going out and waiting for the Godwits as they passed by. I'd done this before, but I drove out to North Dakota and South Dakota and Montana. Couldn't cross the border into Canada, so this is as far as I got then. Then when COVID lightened up, I did a trip that went from Bethesda, Maryland, and Montana up to Alaska, to drive as far as Anchorage here, that had to fly to Nome and then also fly again up to Barrow, up to the top here. Came back to Anchorage, got my car, drove east into Canada, then followed the Master Highway up to the Arctic Ocean and Tuktoyaktuk. So I have to boil that down into the next 40 minutes. And let's see what we can do here. So Patsy wanted me to show you what we're talking about. There's the car. And you just fill the car with the things that you need: a tent, a two burner gas stove, some of those Tupperware boxes that you fill either with food or with cook kit materials. You need a good cooler. I have a bicycle, a nice sleeping pad so you can sleep well, and off you go. And so we're going to start down here at the very bottom of Texas, at the border wall here. Look at here, Boca Chica, waiting for Godwits. And when you're not watching Godwits, you're watching lots of other shorebirds. These are white rumps, I believe. You can head over to South Padre Island, lots of great birding there. You guys, I'm sure, have spent time there. And basically what I'm going to do is immerse myself in all the different places where I might be able to see a Godwit. And you see, there's lots of collateral encounters. I saw my first Godwit in Taft, Texas. So I didn't see him down on the border there, but there was a salt pan there in Taft. And a single Godwit, a single adult male, came over as I was watching flocks of shorebirds and sort of got that under my belt. So the idea was to see Godwits in every state I visited, which I did. You get to Oklahoma, and what you say, well, where are the Godwits going to be in Oklahoma? Why would there be Godwits in Oklahoma? Well, if they're wet fields, you're going to get migrating Godwits. So you really basically look bare rain-filled fields, and you're going to get Godwits and other shorebirds mixed in with Franklin's gulls and lots of other things. And when I got to Oklahoma, and you also find wonderful places. Great Salt Plains State Park where I camped. My first night in Oklahoma, the supercells came in. The park manager came over because I was in a tent and warned me that we might have some twisters that night. It thundered for 7 hours, thundered and rained for 7 hours, but all was good. And generally, if you're in a tent, you're pretty safe, I think, as long as, you're not camped under the trees, which I don't. Anyway, these are voyages of discovery. I did not know a lot about Oklahoma until I got there. And what you find is in every nook and cranny, there's some sort of green space, there's some sort of wildlife management area, or a national wildlife refuge, or some sort of state park that's going to give you a place to stay and a place to bird watch. And then there's fields, there's private lands where you're finding Godwits and lots of other things. In fact, I saw most of my Godwits in non-protected areas. In fact, virtually all of the Godwits I saw on these trips were in non-protected areas. So Kansas, a lot like Oklahoma in terms of being out there, seeing national wildlife refuges you've never heard about. And you see other things like, snowy plovers, willets, your Hudsonian Godwits, but look at all these black terns. I never expected to see a whole slew of black terns like that in migration. Nebraska, Godwit territory. It was just incredible. Because again, a lot of it depends on rainfall. If you get the rainfall, you have the flooded fields and you get the Godwits. But you get lots of other things too. Here's, anybody know what that is? It's a ball of Baltimore Orioles. Just two of them, two males fighting. I was camped at a little free campground in Beaver Creek, Nebraska, a little south of Utica, which is a little east of Seward. None of those towns you probably know unless you grew up in Nebraska. But here I am with Bob Cook here. Bob is living in this campground. He's able to stay there for 30 days. He has a portable house on his truck here, and then it has a trailer in the back. And he also has another car, but he also has his bicycle that's solar powered. So he's one of these savants that you meet when you camp out in funny little places in like Beaver Creek, Nebraska. And I spent a fair amount of time talking to this guy, very bright. He had an engineering mind. He just was on the outs a little bit, down on his luck. But interesting people, nice people. You learn a lot. I think those are Godwits over there, and blue and teal. But then you get bonus birds. You know, you look at eBird and you say, oh, wait a second, there's some buff-breasted sandpipers nearby. And after a few hits and misses, you know, you get some in the scope. And that's, you know, another bonus bird if you're looking for Godwits. South Dakota, like Nebraska, but more. The first day I was in South Dakota, I was driving northward 70 miles an hour toward, there were all sorts of signs for the home, one of the homes of Laura Ingalls Wilder, a little house on the fill in the blank. And there was a flock of birds out in this field. What were they? It was 249 spring plumage, summer breeding plumage golden plovers. And anybody seen that many golden plovers in a single flock before? That's the only, I'll never see it again, I'm sure. The only reason I know there were 249 is they took off as I pulled the car over. They took off in a single tight flock, and I was able to photograph it, and I counted them later. But I didn't even know they came in flocks that big. But you know, also, sorry, excuse me. More Godwits, and I'm sorry. That's a spring plumage sanderling, which you don't see every day. And of course, the Wilson snipe, which is a lovely bird. South Dakota in the spring and early summer, South Dakota and North Dakota are stunning birding. You just wouldn't believe how good it is. There's just so much. And here we're in North Dakota. Maybe for the oil and petroleum people, the back and shale is a famous thing going on in northwestern North Dakota. That's happening. You see a lot of trucks on the road related to that. But then you also see this painted canyon here next to Teddy Roosevelt National Park. This is over near Medora in westernmost North Dakota, which is long-billed curlew territory. There's an uppie there being dwarfed by the curlew. Marbled Godwit territory. For people who eat pretzels, anybody eat pretzels? Yeah, everyone know dots? They're in Velva, North Dakota. So you know, I saw that I had to stop and take a picture. I didn't see Dot though, sadly. And once you get to the very top of North Dakota, what's next? Canada. It's Manitoba is there, and right on the border of northernmost North Dakota. Do we need to stop?
No, I had to, the volume wasn't high enough, but you're good now.
There's a little park called Benegosh State Park. Anybody been to Benegosh State Park? It's right at the base of the Turtle Mountains, which are in Manitoba. And there's this little park, and it's the beginning of the boreal forest. And you get breeding redneck grebes, which I've never encountered before, doing their wonderful displays out on the Lake Benegosh. Again, these are places that I didn't know of until I got there. I get in the area and say, well, where am I going to spend the night? And I'd get the map out. I had maps, believe it or not. And I had my iPhone as well, but the maps, you know, you're eating breakfast, you can put a map out and just sort of look around and find places that look, you know, like interesting places to visit. And usually they turn out pretty well. And we're in prairie country, so you're getting pronghorns. We're now in Manitoba. That is big time marbled godwit territory. Lots of breeding habitat for marbled godwits, which are big prairie and high plains species. And you get wonderful wetlands. There's wonderful protected areas, delta up by Lake Manitoba, famous big wetland, wonderful for shorebirds. And this is now, we're flying to Churchill, so I had to leave my car in whatever the town's called. What's it called? What's the capital of Manitoba? Winnipeg. Winnipeg. Come on, we can get this. And you fly from, it was 80 in Winnipeg when I left. And it snowed every day in Churchill. I spent a week up in Churchill in June, early June, and to see the Godwits where they're breeding. And you're up at where the redpolls nest and still sandpipers nesting. And you're on the Hudson Bay, which is covered in several feet of ice in early June. And that's why there's tundra there. you know, it's quite far south for tundra, but you're basically have this freezer, which is Hudson Bay. So that big block of ice that takes a long time to melt, not only has, of course, polar bears on it, but creates this tundra on the land, and that's why the Godwits are breeding that far south. So that's the easiest place to get to see breeding Godwits. So male, female, the breeding males have these nice bright chestnut bellies. The females are a little grayer. There's a male, and these are mainly Dunlin, I think. More from Manitoba. Here we are out in the fen, where Godwits, Nathan Center, the world expert on Hudsonian Godwits, worked for a number of years on Godwits. And in fact, I think this one has, if you look, has one of Nathan's aluminum bands and a color band as well on it. That's a plastic color flag. This bird was at least 9 years old. So I was able to let him know that bird was still cooking. He had moved his research to Western Alaska, so he was no longer working on these birds. Here's a displaying leaf sandpiper in the tundra, doing its little display on this beautiful tundra surface. The hot Godwits are in this season are doing a display flight overhead, which is quite spectacular. So now we've switched to the autumn. So that was the end of that spring trip. Now we're catching the Godwits as they're coming southeast into James Bay. I was a volunteer with the Canadian Wildlife Service. They had an annual, until recently, they had an annual shorebird survey in James Bay because it was such an important staging area for shorebirds in the fall. And so every year they had a series of camps. They leased camps from the indigenous people, the native First Nations people here, who have spring hunting camps that they use mainly in the spring, mainly to shoot snow geese in big numbers, which they use for traditional purposes, mainly eat. And in the fall, they're not using those, and so we were able to set into these camps, which are wonderful places for not only white rump sandpipers and greater yellowlegs, lots and lots of Godwits. Some of the early in the late the late 1990s, they were getting counts of 3,000 and 4,000 flocks of 3,000 or 4,000 Godwits, which is quite a remarkable thing. We saw hundreds before we didn't see any. Nelson sparrow here. Both Nelsons and LeConte sparrows are common breeders there, along with yellow rail. So you're seeing Godwits, but you're also seeing lots of other birds that are often, for normal birders, pretty difficult to get hold of. As a black bear, I guess. I can't really, I can go here. Accessible by helicopter. Ross Wood and the Doug McCrae, Canadian volunteers who are running the show here. I was working with them. White rump sandpipers here. Ross was doing a project on lesser yellowlegs, which is a species in steep decline. You can actually see what this is a picture of. Oh, that's from the helicopter looking down on our little camp. It was a little camp that was infested with black bears. Every time you went away, the bears would come up onto the patios of our little encampments to try to get in and get the food. We had to put up little electric wires around the little kitchen camp to keep them from getting in there. Very friendly, those black bears. Not threatening at all, of course. And now I came back from James Bay back to Cochrane, Ontario, and got in my car and drove east and south. There were a series of provinces and states that took me to Massachusetts. Here we are in Quebec. Anybody spent time in a town called Tadoussac? Anybody been to Tadoussac? It's on the north side of the St. Lawrence. Absolutely. Here's a picture of it up here. Glorious little historic town on the St. Lawrence. Lots and lots of history in the St. Lawrence. A lot of the early attempted settlement of North America by the French and the British were in Canada. We don't know anything about it, but it happened a long, long time ago. Mostly unsuccessful because it's so difficult. Beluga whale out there, lots of whale boats. So lots of whale watching out of Tadoussac. It's fantastic. There you can see blue whales there. I did not see mostly humpbacks, of course, fin whales, the belugas, and also humpbacks and minkies, of course. And also lots of birds when you're out there. Lots and hundreds and hundreds of black-legged kittiwakes. So here's my typical camp situation in a state park. This is in Tadoussac there. I'm in Simmonsville Park. Boreal forest all around, which is, I love the boreal forest. Wimbros. Boreal forest, I can't see what that picture is.
The footprint.
Oh, it's a wolf footprint, yeah, sorry. Yeah, there are wolves about. You don't see them, you just see sign of them. And again, you see these places that you can't pronounce, reserves that you've never heard of and are unpronounceable, big, large reserves of natural habitat, that wonderful places that we don't even know about. Places to go, places to camp, places to bird watch, places to spend happy times. So from Quebec, we're now in New Brunswick. The head of the Bay of Fundy, which starts in northeastern Maine, goes up into between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, ends at the head there at this little town. Semi-palmated sandpiper is the town mascot. They've got this 10-foot statue here, 12-foot statue to the semi-palmated. Well, 1 million semi-palmated sandpipers stage at the head of the Bay of Fundy in September. And they have a whole observatory just about to those semi-palmated sandpipers on this huge mudflat at the head of the Bay of Fundy, which has those gigantic tide ranges of 25-30 feet vertical. Beautiful pastoral country, lots of logging going on because you have the softwoods, black spruce, white spruce, red spruce, maybe balsam fir. So timber industry, very important there. Now we're in Maine, strange little towns, again, Medivance, established 1841. Shorebirds all about, Scoota Peninsula, Acadia National Park. That's the least sandpiper. Here's a whimbrel. I saw my first whimbrel on that very same rock in 1969. Was the same bird still there apparently? Or maybe a great. Sure. And now we're on Monomoy Island, which is a sand island that protrudes south from the elbow of Cape Cod. So if you know Cape Cod, Provincetown is up at the very top of the hand. Elbow is Chatham, and Monomoy Island is to the south. It's now actually 3 islands because sand islands are ephemeral. But this old lighthouse, this is where I camped for a week at this lighthouse with the permission. It's a national wildlife refuge. And it's a place where I first saw my first Hudsonian Godwit in September 1970. So it's nice to get back to that place. And I did find a single Hudsonian Godwit in their favorite birding spot, which is called Powder Hole here, which was very rich in shorebirds. So because it's, because of the shape, how the East Coast hangs to the east, you have all that water to the south. A lot of the birds hit that coast and then actually rather than go southwest along the coast, they just say, heck with it, we're going to take off from a place like Monomoy. So they fatten up in Monomoy and then they take off for South America from there. So here I'm in the autumn, I'm saying basically farewell to the Godwits for that fall. And I was able to see that one lonely Godwit. Lots of the Godwits, of course, take off from James Bay. They book it the whole way. They don't stop at Monomoy Island. Only a few. They may be ones that are tired or didn't have enough to eat the day before. And it's an interesting part of the world. How many people have been to Cape Cod here? Everyone been to Cape Cod? That's it's a very, very popular summer holiday place. It's rewilding because the return of the gray seals. When I went there, when I saw my first Godwit there in 1970, there were no gray seals at Cape Cod. Now there's some 30,000 individuals winter there. Most of them on Monomoy Island on that beach, on that Atlantic side of the beach at Monomoy. 30,000, whereas there were none in 1970. So they've repopulated. And because of the gray seals, of course, you get this guy. Great whites have come back to feed on the gray seals. That's in 7 feet of water here. I photographed them from a little Cessna 206. I said, I just want to see these great white sharks because always heard about going to South Africa to see them. Now I can see them in Massachusetts. We saw the first one within a minute of taking off in Chatham. So there it is, you just pull that, let me photograph it. So there's lots to see besides Godwits. So there's that last one of the fall that I was telling you about. Okay, now this is the last and biggest trip. This will take us from Montana to Alaska, then to Arctic Canada. And we're here in Montana. This is up in the high plains of Glasgow on the Bentonite Road. Anybody been to Glasgow on the Bentonite Road? If you want to see long-billed curlews, well, if you want to see red-headed woodpeckers, it's a good place to go as well. But you go there to see shorebirds, believe it or not, even though there's no shore. Mountain plovers are there, marbled godwits, long-billed curlews, thick-billed longspurs, what you might know that have been known as McCown's longspurs. A lack of sharp-tailed grouse are there. If you're tired of the shorebirds, you've got some grouse. Nearby in the town just to the east of Glasgow, I visited Shayna Bache, who has a ranch that happens to be on the KT boundary. She found this on the surface right there near the KT boundary. This is a T-Rex tooth, about six-inch long T-Rex tooth, which is her pride. There's a Triceratops rib bone here that's just in the surface there that she pointed out to me. I'm not seeing what that is. Anybody can see what? Oh yeah, some sort of poppy or no, it's some sort of wildflower that I don't know the species of. I'm sorry. So Montana, shorebirds, believe it or not, and also beautiful valleys. This is Red Bud Valley in northern Montana. Lots of beautiful places that we've never heard about. We're now in Saskatchewan, so we're headed north and west. In the spring, you see droves and droves of these are northern phalaropes headed north to breed Baird sandpiper here. Lots of prairie. This is Grand Prairie and Godwits too. Alberta, as we head a little further north and west, ferruginous hawks, willets, upland sandpipers, gas and oil, endless roads in prairies that go forever with very few cars on them. Look at this. Anybody know what that is? It's a view from the dashboard. Is that what it is? Oh, it's just it's the same picture. Sorry. So this is my typical camping setup. You see, and we're in northwestern Alberta, where we're just getting to the very beginning of the Great Boreal Forests. So you see these white spruces here that make me feel sort of at home because I'm a boreal person. My 4-man tent, car, my bike. There's my gas stove. I like to camp where I have a picnic table. I like luxurious camping. I like this camp. I have my old roll-up picnic table, but it's not really nearly as good as the big old-fashioned ones.
What does it say on the side on your sign?
I think it says Flight of the Godwit. So I put that on there just for fun. Has a picture of flying godwits. And then, it's a conversation thing. People stop and say, hey, what you doing? What's a godwit? And, it's interesting. You meet more people that way. And also if people are wondering what you're doing, oh, it's a crazy bird man. They never leave you alone if they don't like bird people. We're now in British Columbia, northern British Columbia. Who's driven to Alaska? Any Alaska drivers? Northern British Columbia is like the end. It's the be all and end all in terms of critters along the road. All these woodland bison you have to drive through. Barrett's golden eyes there on the big lake. Doll sheep. Our friendly Swainson's hawks, which are passing through Texas as we speak. I saw scores of porcupines, which seem to be on the move, and just incredible mountain scenery. Fantastic mountain scenery. And just, confining creatures. Here's a cross fox. This is Wester. It's right in the middle of the road. Crazy thing. And just scenery just it's like the Grand Tetons at every turn. You turn and you see Grand Tetons, then you go another few miles, and then there's another set of Grand Tetons. You don't even know what the names of these mountains are. You know, as you get up closer to Alaska, you might have heard of the Wrangell St. Elias. These are that. It's just they're just so much. It's just so big, so much, and not lots of people, not lots of annoyances. We're now in Yukon, more of everything. You're up in caribou country, lots and lots of black bears in spring. They're feeding all along the sides of the roads. They're completely. You just get out. You can go practically walk up and pat them if that's what you really want to do. Trumpeter swans on their nests. Beautiful sunsets. Remember, we're heading up north in spring. You know, daylight more and more, dark less and less as the sunset recedes towards midnight. Don't need to say anything about that. That's just too beautiful. All right, we're what's his name? Stan Center. Stan Center's son is working on Godwits. I don't mind blanking on his name. But in Beluga, Alaska, that's just a little bit west of Anchorage. It's just a bush plane, 10-minute bush plane flight from downtown Anchorage. You get the plane in downtown, it's like taking a bus. And you're in nice boreal habitat, white spruce forests with these boggy areas where the Hudsonian Godwits nest. I'm staying at a little fish camp where people come up during the summer to fish for salmon, red fox, black bear, Arctic terns breeding everywhere, glorious thing. American three-toed woodpeckers, boreal chickadee, that's something I can't see. Lesser yellowlegs, that's sleeping lady, which we saw every day when we were working on the Godwits here in the bog. We were looking up at this beautiful mountain. That's in the Alaska range. A Godwit nest with their beautiful olive eggs. Here's Dr. Center working on the Godwit. He's actually banding a Godwit there with his wife, a graduate student. Here they're untangling a net. They would actually hold the net in their hands. They'd find a Godwit nest with a female in it. Here's a female, which you can't see because of the light, but she's hiding in her nest there. And they would just carry the net and just lay it over her, and then they could walk up and just pick her up and band her and weigh her and do. They also, here's a short-billed dowitcher that was nesting in the same pond. So he's been working up here for 6 or 7 years and has been putting, at the end of the season, he puts radio tags, the satellite tags on them so he can watch them make their travels to southern South America. Arctic tern, dancing sandhill cranes, which are quite commonplace up in Alaska. Here's a sort of domestic scene, interior Alaska. This is sort of pretty standard thing where sort of everything is there all at once. All the stuff you've ever bought, you never get rid of anything. And you're selling beer on the side, of course. Yeah, and you pass by and hey, what's that? Oh, it's Denali in the blue sky, 20,000-foot peak when you're driving down from Fairbanks towards Anchorage. Mountain Avens, one of the highlands, little wildfire that you see up in the tundra, up on Murphy's Dome. Rock Ptarmigan, more beautiful mountains. Again, there are birds to look at, but there are other, there's a common alpine. It's a new butterfly for my life list. Moose. One day I was hanging out in Anchorage, and I went to the back of the international airport. There's a lot of protected areas in Anchorage itself, and within 10 minutes I saw 7 different moose. Three bulls in a field, and a cow with 3 youngsters. They were all within about maybe a quarter of each other. All in urban Anchorage, within the town. So quite a remarkable place. There are other Godwits. Here's Bar-tailed. You have to go to Nome to see that baby. That's one that nests on the Seward Peninsula and then winters down in the South Pacific. This is the world record holder in terms of migrations now. We'll talk about that in a second. Long-tailed Jaeger out in the lowland or upland tundra. Western sandpiper on territory in the tundra. This is a Pacific golden plover, not an American golden plover, but Pacific. They nest in the lowland tundra around Nome. Nome is fabulous birding in late May and early June. Absolutely mind-blowing. And there's a fair amount of a road system. You have to fly to get there, and then you can rent a car and drive through the tundra and the mountains and see things like, well, under this bridge or the road you're driving on, there's a gyrfalcon with 2 chicks nesting on the underside of the bridge. The Canada Lynx here. I was driving on the Cougar Rock Road into the interior Seward Peninsula, and I drove through this sort of drifts of snowshoe hares. There was hares all on, and then of course the hare consumer popped up right beside the road. Fat and sassy, watching me, the Canada Lynx, which of course specialize on snowshoe hares. Muskox out in the tundra doing their weird thing. Totally bizarre creatures. Oh, this is a blue throat. If you like songbirds, this is a Eurasian thrush or flycatcher, depending on what you want to call it. That breeds in Alaska and winters in China, Japan, India. This is the rarest. This is sort of the rarest of the rare. This is called the bristle-thighed curlew. Who's seen a bristle-thighed curlew here besides me? Where'd you see it? There. Oh, you saw it. You went to Cougar Rocks? You went up to Coffee Dome? So this is a tough one. Basically, there's one hilltop in the interior of Seward Peninsula where if you're a bird watcher, you make this pilgrimage. You drive for 4 hours on a dirt road up higher into this interior, and then you hike for about 45 minutes up this tundra ridge, and then you hope that one of these guys shows up. It's because they supposedly breed on that hilltop. The one problem is that whimbrels are also common up there, and they nest up there. And whimbrels are virtually identical. Different songs, though. So you can hear the songs, you can differentiate them. But it took me 2 trips there to actually get a photograph of this guy. Absolutely. Another one of the long breeders. This is another one of the crazy birds that nests in Alaska only and winters down in the South Pacific, in Fiji and down in Polynesia and down in New Zealand. Makes that long flight. Red-throated loons, they're in the suburbs of Little Ponce, in the suburbs of Nome. The tundra is a fantastic thing. I spent many, many hours just walking solo through the tundra, trying to get a feel for it. The take-home point that came away from spending that time out there alone in the tundra is the density of birds breeding in the tundra is so low, it's almost zero. And of course, that's the way they want it, because to hide from predators, you don't want to concentrate. There's lots of this habitat out there, just vast expanses. And all these birds that we see in big numbers, maybe down in the Bolivar Peninsula or at High Island, they're just 1s and 2s, and they're really hard to come by. I'd walk for an hour and maybe see 1 or 2 birds. This is during the height of the breeding season, and it might be 1 horned lark, and maybe 1 common redpoll, or maybe a savanna sparrow. And then occasionally you see something special. So now we've gone from Nome up to the very top. This is the northernmost continental North America, Point Barrow or Tuktoyaktuk, difficult for me to pronounce. Here it is. This is June 6th on the Pipeline Road there in Barrow. We're doing spring birding in the snow, and that's what it was like. It snowed most days I was there. Lots of whale iconography. There are whale ribs here that are next to the church here. Bowhead whale jawbones. The local communities here, of course, take several bowhead whales a year. It's very important for their lifestyle. Pectoral sandpiper displaying, Sabine's gull, one of the birds that I was very much hoping to see, and seen them in downtown Barrow. This is the house sparrow, Barrow, the male snow bunny. They're all on display. They're on every rooftop singing and displaying. Wonderful to see that. So when the shorebirds arrive, there's snow on most of the ground, so they look for a little wet spot, a little dry spot, a little pool where there's not snow, and they start displaying, they start acting up, and they want to get there early. They're not taking any chances. Another oddment, here's a redneck stint. That's another bird that's mainly Asian. A few individuals nest in Western Alaska and Northern Alaska, and then they winter down to Australia. Stellar's eider, parasitic Jaeger, all three Jaegers up in Barrow. That's a lot of fun to see all three Jaegers together over the land. You don't have to go out in a boat to see them. This was a surprise to see a polar bear. Saw them from the town. Someone had put some leftover bits of whale and caribou out on the ice, I guess to attract them. I'm not sure. But this bear came this big female would come in every morning or late morning. And then when people saw a bear in the town, the news would go out and then everyone would drive to the beach and everyone would, hang out, watch the bear, take pictures and stuff like that. So it's even a special occasion. There's a bear patrol at Barrow. For those of you who have been there know that. Because the bears do come into town, can be a problem. This is a beautiful female red phalarope. Now we have left Barrow, flew back to Anchorage, got my car out of the Nissan dealership, drove east into Canada, back to Yukon, hooked up, went to, what the town is it, Whitehorse? No, Dawson City. And at Dawson City, you can get the Dempster Highway, which is the highway to nowhere. It goes for 540 miles from Dawson City up to the Arctic Ocean. And if you want, you can drive it. It's all dirt, gravel road, and it takes you through, sorry, let me go back here. Takes you through very pretty country. So this is a Tombstone Territorial Park. It's in Yukon Territory. That's why it's called a territorial park, not a provincial park. Home of beautiful grizzly bears and Smith's Longspur. And basically you're getting up to the very last of the trees. These are mostly black spruce. And you take the Dempster, the car gets a little bit dirty, but you get these close-up encounters with bears. Here's a collared pika. Again, I can find a campground with a picnic table, which is very handy, even though you're up in northern Yukon. And the road passes through crosses that Arctic Circle. It's kind of fun to stop and think about that. That you're far away from home. And I have to think about these bears. I spent a lot of time for 2 years because of the COVID thing, trying to think about now. I'm camping in a little mountain tent, and the bear is as big as the mountain tent. What am I going to do about the bears? And it was, I spent a lot of like sleepless nights just tossing it over sort of intellectually about sleeping in tents with bears. Because there have been accounts, and people, you've seen Grizzly Man, maybe. He was in a mountain tent with his girlfriend, if you've seen that movie. Anyway, it was a total non-issue. I bought bear, fencing for my tent. Very handy, it's portable and convenient. I never once set it up. I just slept in the tent. The bears did their thing and I did mine. There was never any confluence of bears and tents. And so you really, here's the take-home point. The black bears you see, which are mainly down further south, when you're in your habitat with the grizzlies, you're essentially not a black bear, unless you're in Yellowstone or something, or someplace down in the lower 48. The black bears are like, they're like pet dogs. So, they don't care about you and you don't care about them. The grizzlies are terrified of you because, they're permitted. People want to hunt them. People want to get their grizzly. It's like a live bird. I need a live grizzly, or in this case, the death grizzly. So I only saw 3 boar. I saw 3 grizzlies. They were all boars. Everyone I saw me and just bolted fast. You know how fast grizzly bears are supposed to be. They ran as fast as they could away. One was more than a half a mile away. I was on one side of the valley, and this bear was on the other side. And I was driving along the road. I said, "Oh, look, there's a grizzly bear a half mile away." And he saw me and he was running, even though I was a half mile away. He was running because he was so terrified of being shot. At least that's my hypothesis. I'm sticking with it. So here's my bear-proof tent here. We're on the Rock River here, just south of the Northwest Territory. Here's my clean car. I have a picnic table back there, and I have a little rain tarp because it does rain occasionally in the far north. And you're out in this territory. I went up to the top of this hill looking for surfbirds nesting. It's called Surfbird Ridge. No surfbirds. Sorry. And if you keep driving, you drive to the end of the Dexter Highway, which is a town called Inuvik, which is an indigenous town there in the Northwest Territory. So that's north of the Arctic Circle and north of Yukon. Inuvik, a bustling town. I got there during some sort of weekend. It was like crazy. So I just kept driving. There's an extension that takes you to the Beaufort Sea, which is the Arctic Ocean. You drive another 2.5 hours, another 120 miles, and you end up on the very edge of the North Slope of Canada. And you're in, here you are. You're basically, I did the Barrow side, that's the US side, and then I did the Canada side. The Barrow side was more user-friendly. The Tuktoyaktuk is there because it's an indigenous community, but it was also part of the Western Dew Line, which is the Defense Early Warning System. In the old days, when there was a Soviet Union, the United States and Canada and other countries were worried about nuclear Armageddon. And so they set up these big radars in places where they could get an early announcement that the missiles were coming. So they could, call and say, okay, they're coming now. They'd have an hour or maybe a 40-minute advance notice. So when you get to Tuktoyaktuk, there's indigenous community there, but it's mainly junk. US government or Canadian government, I think it's mostly UC, just unlimited buildings and stuff related to nuclear war. That's just, of course, none of it, it's all just there. It's like that house in the interior of Alaska. That's all 100 years from now, it's all going to be there. No one's going to move it. Nobody wants it. Hopefully it'll never get it, I don't think we need it because, we don't use it anymore because of satellites. Satellites have taken place of the Dew Line. So it makes this little site a little bit sad. There's no restaurant in Tuktoyaktuk. There's no campground in Tuktoyaktuk. There's just a parking lot. And so it's the end of the road. It's 77-hour drive from my home in Bethesda to that parking lot. And actually, this is the parking lot. They do have a little, they have a little edge. They have a little walkway along the edge. There's a parking lot. There's a little covered gazebo where you can cook dinner if you want to. And all these people, I wasn't the only crazy person. There were lots of people like you guys who wanted to drive up this road and see what the end of the world looked like. So this was, I think it was a Friday night. I shared the picnic table with some people from Peekskill, New York, who we shared, we were from different political parties. So there was some back and forth about that sort of thing. And then all sorts of retirees in RVs were parked in the parking lot. So they had RVs to sleep in. They didn't need a campground. But quite an assemblage to the whole edge of this parking lot were all these people who had, patiently trundled north. So they just wanted to see the end of the road, like I did too. Now, of course, I wanted to see Godwits up here. There was basically not much to see, because I was in this town, and there's no protected area there. There are no bird walks. There's no setup. So I slept in my car. But before that, as we were cooking dinner, this was getting a little bit dusty. All the local indigenous people came out. They wanted to see us. So they came out on their four-wheelers, you know, with their kids on the backs, and they all came out and they immediately surrounded us. And they just, you know, 1,000 questions. They wanted to know, you know, why were we here? Where were we coming from? And on and on. And, you know, it became a little bit festive, but also a little bit annoying. I wanted to eat dinner and I didn't feel like eating in front of these people who were sort of standing around me. They were all very nice. Everyone was great. But eventually we had to shoo them away a little bit so we could eat. And, but all night long, people came into the parking lot because they didn't have anything else to do. These, you know, the local community, this sort of come in, you know, just like in a small town, peel wheels, the motorcycles, and this and that, and all night long sort of went. I tried to sleep in my car, and you know, dawn came, and I just said, I just want to get out of here. I want to go home, back south, which I did. I went back to that beautiful park, you know, 6 hours south there in Yukon, and spent some time doing more bird work. Anyway, let's tip our hats to these godwits. Hudsonian here. This is one of Nathan Center's birds that shows his migration, his or hers. I can't see if they're male or female. The kind of considerable migration that they do. But here's bar-tailed. Well, one of these birds traveled flying, flapping its wings for 249 hours, 239 hours. That's 10 days less 1 hour, 8,100 miles from here to here. That's the longest single bird flight ever recorded using satellite technology. 10 days flying without eating, without sleeping, without resting, without sitting on the water or sitting on the ground. That is a pretty freaking amazing. It's fantastic that we've discovered that. And it's going to hopefully make people appreciate these birds a little more. One of the worries is, you know, these birds tend to move because of the winds. They move as they go north. These birds come north through China and Korea. The marine, the coastal habitats for shorebirds along the shore of Yellow Sea have really been taking a hit in Japan and Korea and China. They've really lost a lot of habitat. So, of course, these birds need habitat to power their way all back to Alaska. So considerable concern there. So these got, you know, the Hudsonians, less problematic here. This one's not very impressive. It didn't go out, you know, often they take off from New Brunswick and head out this way, but still quite a long migration range, pretty fantastic. The book that I'm going to do, talking about these travels and these birds, it's really going to be a book about shorebirds. Talk about their natural history and a little bit about the travels. It's already been illustrated by Alan Messer. He finished his last illustration in November and unfortunately passed away in December. So I'm tipping my hat in memory to him. He did some beautiful illustrations for the book, which won't come out till April of 2025. And because of COVID, I had to basically put the shorebird book on hold, the Godwit book on hold, and I did another book called Birds of North America. This is something I could do at home. And so this actually is coming out in April 2024, a year from now. So that's with Johns Hopkins. It's headed to the printer. And I hope you'll consider having a look at that book when you finish. And now I will stop and take some questions if you have any. Thank you very much. We do about questions, Zoom versus here. Nothing.
I think everybody is just stunned.
Okay.
I have a question.
I have a question. I want to.
Right.
So when you were camping, especially in the States, did you have trouble finding camping spots?
During COVID, I did. Otherwise, not at all. Absolutely not at all.
There's a lot of camping spots you have to reserve nowadays.
You know, there are so many informal, you know, you can camp in a Walmart parking lot, a lot of places. I mean, there are a lot of weird places you can camp. There are lots of free camping sites that there's no reservation because it's free. Like that one where that fellow with the solar bicycle, that's free. You can only camp there for 30 days in a row, then you have to move for a day.
So that could be my follow-on question was how long did you typically stay?
Anywhere from 1 to 6 days. So to answer there's a website called, I think it's Free Campsites. That's fantastic. There are a whole bunch of websites that pinpoint, like Google Maps, that use geolocator and pinpoint all these possible campsites. So there are just so many. The problem I had, of course, during COVID was all the federal campsites were shut. All the state campsites were shut. All the county campsites were shut. So all I could do was informal and private campsites like KOA, or maybe KOA was shut. I don't know. I didn't try KOA, but I had to sort of sneak around and sort of camp in sort of shady corners here and there. And, because, I wasn't supposed to be traveling. I was out there illegally. And once I stayed in a hotel, I had to, fill out 4 pages of forms and sign a declaration that I was on critical infrastructure activities or something. Totally ridiculous. It was fine. I didn't get in trouble. That was pretty amazing. But so no, you can camp. There's so many places. There's a million. Yes, ma'am.
You said that you got interested in birds at age 7. What was it that happened that you knew that's what you wanted to
It
do?
might have been, I think it was 7, 1958. 1957. I was at Roland Park, a little county park outside of Baltimore, Maryland. I was with my mom and brother. We were having a hot dog cookout in the summer. It was in June. It was summer, end of the day. And I looked up and I saw a male red-bellied woodpecker. That was it. An epiphany, touched by the eye, the hand of God.
There's a question from the chat. It says, do you always travel alone?
Oh, traveling alone, yes, versus traveling with other people. If you're a bird photographer, you want to travel alone. Or if you're a nature photographer, you want to travel alone. First of all, my wife doesn't like to sleep in a tent. And she also, I'm sure you would. And she works for a living. She still has a job that she goes to. I'm a loner, not a, I like people, but I'm a loner, and it's, I'm never lonely when I'm out with nature and if I have my camera and my binoculars and my car and my tent, I'm never a minute. I'm as happy as a lark. Now I call my wife every night or every morning sometime, call her at work or call her at home, check in or text, call the kids. I read my email, do that kind of stuff as necessary. But I've never felt at risk. I've never gotten sick for some reason. I don't know why. I've never woken up in the night with like a terrible case of diarrhea or something like that. I'm talking about now. I'm not talking about my whole life. But these trips in my retirement years. I did have a car burn up in Marshall, Texas, back in 2015. This is described in this book. For some reason, the car didn't have any oil or water in it. I don't know why. It did. I mean, I got to Marshall, Texas from Bethesda. There was oil and water.
You used it all up.
I don't know. We'll never know why, but the car burned up. And I was in Texas, the land of cars. And it was a whole story that I could tell you some other time, but very amusing story. But any last questions? Any other?
The last one there is that, have you ever done a big year?
Oh, big year. So someone at the talk I gave in Plano yesterday said something, what you do is the opposite of the big year. where a big ear, you're trying to see as many birds as possible, and I'm looking at one bird in as many places as possible.
It's the anti-big ear, the anti-big ear.
It's the inverse of the big ear. And my philosophy as a retired biologist is, my real interest. Well, I have two interests. As an undergraduate, I was an American history major. So I'm interested in American history and American culture. And I'm also interested in biology. So, I use the birds to take me to places I've never been and places I would never visit otherwise, where I meet people, I see great birds, I see beautiful places, I eat interesting food that I've never eaten before, and I have wonderful experiences. And, the birds take me to these fantastic places. And, that's why I'd like to keep doing it. Patsy.
One thing, would you share your blog? If someone wants to join your blog?
Yeah, sure.
If you give it to us later, we can send it out.
And it's pretty simple. And since now you don't have to put all that stuff in the front, the HTTPS, all that stuff. So it's just one word. It's 3 words pushed together. Well, 5 words: birds and nature, North America.
Birds and nature, North America.
Blog spot, I guess.
Blog spot.
So have you picked out a trip and a new bird for your next adventure?
No, but I'm sort of doing a little one right now. I'm on holiday. I'm doing the same sort of thing. It's just a little mini. It's only 3 weeks.
Only 3 weeks.
Yeah, only 3. So, I camp for 4 nights at High Island, and I'm going to West Texas. I'm going to be camping in West Texas and south and southern Arizona and southern New Mexico.
Only
So-
5,000 miles.
What's that?
Only 5,000 miles.
Yeah. No, is it going to be that far? No, it's only going to be, it'll be about 3,000. So my blog is birdsandnaturenorthamerica.blogspot.com.
Blogspot.com. Okay. I'll put
What people want to do, it is a nice blog.
It is very nice.
What I do is put people on email. I have an email list. And if I do a blog, then I send out an email to everybody saying, if you're interested, I have a new blog about blank, Alaska. And people can either delete the email or they can, click there and go and see the blog. It's a little easier than, because of the blog won't, you can sign up, but I don't think it tells you.
We get an email that says there's a new blog. We go there immediately because we know we're going to see beautiful photos, interesting stories, and a place that maybe we've not been before, but we want to put on our bucket list. And Bruce's, I've been to a lot of them. So do you want to just say anything about the books?
So yeah, and maybe we could scan that flyer and somehow make it available.
Yes, we
To
can.
your mailing list or whatever. So I have a series of books that I think some of them would be interesting gifts for loved ones or not loved ones or relatives or not relatives who are interested in nature. So they're books about nature and New Guinea and birds and things like that. And I welcome you. And what it does, you just send me an email. You tell me which book you'd like. Tell me how you'd like it signed. I'll post it to you, and then you can send me a check. Yes, sir.
So do the Godwits fly faster than most migratory birds, or the
I
same?
think they do. I think they do. I forget the average speed. You could do the arithmetic, actually.
Yeah, it was like
Calculate
30.
this. 8,100 miles, 239 hours. So what's the speed there? I don't know. I haven't done the arithmetic. I can't do it.
405 miles in 12 hours. So I figured it was like between 30 and 35, maybe.
So that doesn't sound terribly fast, If you look at them, if you saw some of those birds in flight, they look a little bit like fighter jets. Their wings are not terribly long and they're pointed and they're narrow, which seem to look, they look like for speed. They don't have big lumbering wings. So I think they're at least at times must be pretty fast. And I think what they what they try to do is get up, high up into, catch some breezes up high, some of those jet streams.
I see. So do you use one of those satellite communicators when you're out in the boondocks?
I do, and I have a little spot. It's called a spot. It's like you can put it in your pocket, and it allows you to. You could push A, B, or C. A says, "Hey, I'm fine," and it sends an email to 4 people.
Okay.
You say B, "I'm in trouble. Come get me." Or it's C, "I'm dying. You better hurry up and get a helicopter."
There's no button that says I'm inside a grizzly bear.
Or, yeah, D, "Well, it's too late. Don't bother." But yeah, I no longer, I guess it's useful. I guess for your family, it's useful if you're in the northern Yukon to hit the button and let them know that you're okay. So I did it.
Well, we'd like to invite everyone to, if you would stay around and chat, and we have a few sandwiches left, and come and look at the books over here. Unless anybody has other questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Beehler, Dr. Bruce. Thank you. Wish we could push some sandwiches through the computer. Yeah, that was. No kidding.
Has been looking at the campsite by yourself.
Enjoying his retirement.
You should try it.
Travel that hard that long.
Yeah.
Yeah.